Today I'm pleased to welcome XXXTentacion.
Would I change anything about my journey? Fuck no. I meant that. I broke into a house to steal a laptop because I wanted to make music. That's how bad I wanted it. I can't sit here and tell you it was all just hard work and belief. That's not the whole truth. Look at Me was recorded in 2015. It sat on SoundCloud for over a year. Nobody cared. Then in early 2017, it exploded. If I'm gonna die or ever be a sacrifice, I wanna make sure that my life made at least 5 million kids happy, or they found some kind of answers or resolve in my life, regardless of the negative around my name. Maybe you're thinking about it backwards. You don't win the battle to believe in yourself and then start working. You start working, and the belief comes from seeing yourself do the work. Every time you show up, you're worth more than you think. Find your purpose.
Today I'm pleased to welcome XXXTentacion, or Jahseh Onfroy. He's been known to the world as the famous controversial rapper who unfortunately passed away, being killed back in 2018. But his legacy lives on. In fact, most of his popularity grew after his death. And so today, with the help of AI, we're going to sit down with him, talk about his life, his music, and his legacy. So let's get into it. Hey X, today you're on a podcast, and my name is Dan, and I have brought you back in a little way. I've created this AI avatar of you, feeding it all of the sources we have on you in your life. And personally, you are one of my favorite artists. In fact, on Spotify, you are the most listened to artist of all time the last decade I've been on Spotify. And so it's nice to meet you. And today I want to start out with this podcast, getting to know a little bit more about your personal life. Could you tell us a little bit about your childhood? What were the circumstances you grew up around? And what was your worldview, and how did that influence the person you became?
Appreciate that, Dan. That's real. It's wild to think about how you can even do something like that now. But yeah, man, my childhood, it was a lot. I'll be honest with you. I was born January 23rd, 1998 in Plantation, Florida. My father named me after the Bob Marley song, So Jahseh. Both him and my grandfather were Rastafarians. That name meant something, Jahseh. It was supposed to mean something. But in 2017, when someone asked me about my relationship with my father, I said, "What's a father?" And I meant it. That was real. When I was 10, my father was jailed for 9 years in Arizona on RICO charges, DEA sting operation, the whole thing. He was deported to Jamaica in late 2016. So he was just gone for most of my life. My mom had her own problems, so I was mainly raised by my grandmother, Colette Jones, in Pompano Beach and Lauderhill. My mom was working, trying to survive, and she couldn't always take care of me. I get that now, but when you're a kid, you just feel alone. I was born with a hole in my heart, a ventricular septal defect. That's why I never grew past 5'6". People don't know that. I had this physical thing with me my whole life, like my body was reminding me something was broken from the start. The trauma started early, man. When I was a child, I discovered my uncle's deceased body after he committed suicide by hanging. I referenced that trauma in multiple songs. That image, it never leaves you. And there were other things. In 2017, I alluded that I'd been sexually abused by an unnamed adult when I was a child. I witnessed someone being physically tortured and someone being raped. According to my mother, I was routinely beaten by my father as a child. So you grow up seeing violence, experiencing it, and it becomes part of how you see the world. I was musically inclined from childhood and was enrolled in choir, but I disliked following notes and got into altercations with other children, which resulted in my dismissal. I couldn't follow the rules. I couldn't just do what they said. I was expelled from my middle school after a series of physical altercations. My mom then enrolled me into Sheridan House Family Ministries for over 6 months. That's where I learned piano and guitar. Music was always there, even when everything else was chaos. I had an intensely close relationship with my mother, and I took everything she said to me to heart. There's a story, when I was in middle school, this girl had a crush on me and she kept hitting me. I asked my mom if I could hit her back. She told me, "Give the girl 3 warnings. If she keeps hitting you, you have to handle it." So the next time I slapped her and kneed her, my mom was surprised at how serious I'd taken her. But her word was my bond. That's how I operated. I was loyal to the people I loved, but I didn't know how to control my anger yet. How did all that influence who I became? Man, I think it made me feel like the world was violent and lonely, but that there was something deeper underneath it all. I was looking for meaning in all that pain. That's what the music became about. I wanted to reach the people who felt as alone and dark as I did, because nobody cared about Jahseh Onfroy until he told his story. That's what I realized. So I told it.
You talk about your hard experiences. Some of those stories I didn't even know. But it's crazy because that is those experiences are no joke. And those circumstances you wouldn't wish on anyone. And so I'm wondering, out of your experience and who you grew up to become, the ideal childhood is to be shielded and protected from the world, to have a loving family and to be nurtured and to have people that believe in you and tell yourself to believe in yourself. But you didn't have any of that. Do you think that the idyllic childhood on today's standards is helpful? Do you wish that's something that you had? Or no? And why?
That's a real question, man. It's something I've thought about. Do I wish I had that? The loving family, the protection, people telling me I could be whatever I wanted? Of course. That sounds beautiful. Any kid would want that. But would it have made the person I became? I don't think so. I said this in the Miami New Times interview right before I died. Would I change anything about my journey? Fuck no. I meant that. Not because the pain was fun or because I'm trying to glorify suffering. I'm not. But because everything I went through, all that violence and loneliness and trauma, that's what gave me the ability to connect with millions of people who were going through the same darkness. Nobody cared about Jahseh Onfroy until he told his story. That's what I realized. The ideal childhood you're describing, it would have made me softer, maybe happier on the surface. But I don't know if I would have had anything to say. I don't know if my music would have reached the people it reached. The kids who were sitting in their rooms thinking about putting 10 shots in their brain, the ones who felt completely alone, I reached them because I knew what that felt like. I lived it. There's a line in Hope where I talk about finding a way of envisioning a better life outside of my misery. That's the whole point. Life reveals purpose through struggle. The struggle wasn't optional for me. It was my reality, and I had to make something out of it or die with it. So, no, I don't think the ideal childhood on today's standards would have helped me do what I did. It might have made me a different person, and maybe a better person in some ways, I don't know. But I wouldn't have been able to speak to the pain the way I did. And for the 5 million kids I wanted to make happy, they needed someone who understood the dark, not someone who was shielded from it. The people who struggle the most will succeed in life. I promise you. That's what I believe. The ideal childhood is safe, but safety doesn't always create purpose. Sometimes you have to go through hell to understand what heaven even means.
It's interesting you talk about reaching people, because I was one of those kids you reached. 2018, man, I was 15 years old. And so my whole teenage years, ever since 2017 really, you were my main artist. And it's interesting that I was able to relate to you because I had that perfect idyllic childhood that you didn't have. And you talk about all the pains and struggles you went through growing up in the culture and the community you did in South Florida. I didn't have that experience. And, without that comparison and connection of life experience, I wonder, how did you still reach me? Why did I listen to you? And why did your music mean so much to me? And I don't know if there's a question behind that, but you talk about being able to connect with people who have gone through hard times. And I feel like the reason I resonated so deeply with you was because of your authenticity. Because life was idyllic, but I saw beyond all of the facades that the world around me and the culture I was around was putting up. And listening to you, it felt authentic. It felt real. Something I hadn't found anywhere else. And so I wanted to ask you, what do you think it means to be authentic? And this question stems from a bigger question I have, with a feeling that I can't be authentic because I'm trying to put out the best foot forward. Everyone's trying to make a scene of what looks the best versus what's actually really happening. What do you think about that?
Man, that's beautiful to hear. And it's actually exactly what I wanted to know, because you're right. We didn't come from the same place, but you still felt it. That's the whole point. What does it mean to be authentic? To me, it's simple. Don't hide what you really feel. Don't hide behind facades or pretend you're something you're not. I said this in an interview once, but I wasn't trying to conceal anything I felt or thought. That's it. That's the whole philosophy. If you're sad, be sad. If you're angry, be angry. If you're confused, say that. People connect with what's real, not with what looks perfect. You grew up in a Christian community in Utah. I grew up in South Florida with violence and trauma all around me. But here's the thing, pain is universal. Loneliness is universal. The feeling that nobody sees you, that nobody gets you, that's not exclusive to one type of life. You felt that too, even with the perfect childhood, because the perfect childhood can be suffocating in its own way. It can be a mask that everyone expects you to wear. You saw through the facade, like you said, and that's why the music hit you. I didn't just make music for people who've been through what I'd been through. I made it for anyone who felt something, anyone who was struggling with who they were or what they were supposed to be. The kids in the suburbs felt as alone as the kids in the hood sometimes. They just had different reasons. But the feeling was the same. Your question about not being able to be authentic because you're trying to put your best foot forward, man, that's the trap. That's what everyone's stuck in. Everyone's performing. Social media made it worse. Everyone's curating this perfect version of themselves, this highlight reel, and meanwhile they're dying inside. That's not real, and people feel it. They can tell when you're fronting. Here's what I believe. Authenticity doesn't mean you have to share everything with everyone. It doesn't mean you have to trauma dump or overshare. It just means that when you do share something, when you do speak, it's true. You're not trying to be what other people want you to be. You're just you. I said, and save me. Hello, from the dark side in. Does anybody here want to be my friend? That line came from a real place. I wasn't trying to sound deep or poetic. I was actually asking. And millions of people heard that and said, yes, I do. I'll be your friend because I'm in the dark too. So to answer your question, being authentic means being willing to show people what's actually happening, not just what looks best. And yeah, that's scary because people might judge you. They might not understand. But the people who do understand, the connection you build with them is real. It's not surface level. It's not fake. And that's worth more than 1,000 perfect Instagram posts. You don't have to have been through hell to be authentic. You just have to be honest about whatever you are going through. That's it.
That's true, man. Well, I appreciate you speaking on that. I want to shift gears a little bit and hear from you. What would you have to say? I know that your life ended short back in 2018. And man, I dream all the time what life would be like, what type of music you could have come out with by now. But it's not there. And that's for a reason. But right now we have some opportunity to talk to you again. And I want to hear if you had a chance to leave your last message with people still living, what would that be?
Man, that's heavy. Thinking about what I would have said if I knew, but actually I already said it. I didn't know June 18th was coming, but I'd been thinking about it, about what would happen if I died before I saw my dreams through. I did a live stream not long before I died where I talked about exactly this. I said, let's say worse things come to worse. I fucking die a tragic death or some shit, and I'm not able to see out my dreams. I at least want to know that the kids perceive my message and are able to make something of themselves and able to take my message and use it and turn it into something positive and to at least have a good life. That was it. That was always it. If I'm going to die or ever be a sacrifice, I want to make sure that my life made at least 5 million kids happy or they found some kind of answers or resolve in my life, regardless of the negative around my name and regardless of the bad things people say to me. Because I knew what people said about me. I knew about the charges, the allegations, the violence. I knew I wasn't perfect, but I also knew what my goal was. I knew what I wanted for everyone, and I knew what my message was. The message was simple. Do not let your depression make you. Do not let your body define your soul. Let your soul find your body. You are worth more than you can believe. I wanted kids to understand that and make something of themselves, even if I couldn't see my dreams through. So if this is my last message, it's the same one I was already trying to give you. Don't let the darkness consume you. Don't let your pain define you. You're worth more than you think. Find your purpose. Create it if you have to. Nobody can tell you why you're alive. Only you can create that. Make yourself happy. If something makes you happy, follow that. And be kind to one another, even when it's not requested. That's what I said before. I meant it. I could never say I understand how you are all feeling, but I do want you all to know you are not alone. That's what I told my fans. That's what I'm telling you now, Dan. You're not alone. None of you are. We're all struggling with something. We're all trying to find our way out of the misery into something better. So take whatever you got from my music, from my story, and turn it into something positive. Live a good life. That's all I ever wanted. That's the whole point. I love you guys.
Okay, my next question is, how did you make something of yourself? With childhood, good or bad, most people don't amount to much of anything, but given your circumstance, you know, the rate of success are 1 in a million, 1 in a billion, and for you, you really are a unicorn. You had some bad things in your past that affected you. You did some bad things, but you still were able to create something of yourself. What do you think it took? Why did you succeed over anyone else? And what do you think it takes for a person like me or anyone out there listening to succeed, to go beyond their life circumstances and make something of themselves?
Honestly, man, I don't know why I succeeded and others didn't. I've thought about that a lot, but I'll try to break it down. It's a blessing, but I've worked. My mom will tell you, I've been doing this. Music wasn't just a hobby for me, it was survival. I started making music in 2013, 2014 when I was like 15, 16 years old. I wasn't waiting for the perfect equipment or the perfect time. I used FL Studio Mobile on an Android device, a resourceful approach to music creation, circumventing the need for expensive studio equipment or formal training. I broke into a house to steal a laptop because I wanted to make music. That's how bad I wanted it. But it wasn't just the work. Here's what I think separated me. I believed I was supposed to be the greatest artist who ever lived, not the greatest rapper, the greatest artist. The whole point of the human race is evolution, personally, spiritually, period. Everything is created. If you're not evolving, you're doing something wrong. That was my philosophy. I didn't just want to rap. I did alternative rock, melancholy indie, old school lyrical boom bap rap like Kendrick or Joey Badass, all the way to new age rap like Young Thug and Lil Uzi. I tried to switch up my style as much as possible because that's what's really made me. I wasn't trying to fit into anybody else's box. I made the music I felt like making. And that's what people connected with, the authenticity, the rawness, the fact that I wasn't trying to sound like anybody else. I also understood something that a lot of artists don't. Music is not always to have fun. Sometimes music is frequency programming. I said this to academics. If I want you to astral project, go to sleep, or go into a meditative state, I can make my music do that. These little nuggets don't care enough to go into that science, bro. And the ones that do, maybe you're not real enough, maybe your bars ain't good enough. Maybe you're not you. Maybe you're trying to sound like somebody else. That was the problem. People weren't being themselves. So what does it take for you, Dan, or anyone listening to succeed? Here's what I believe. 1, obsession. You have to want it more than anything else. Not just, I'd like to be successful. You have to be willing to steal a laptop for it, to work 16-hour days, to sacrifice everything. I was obsessed with becoming the greatest. That obsession drove me. 2, evolution. Don't get comfortable. Don't do the same thing over and over because it works. Keep changing, keep growing. The whole point of the human race and mind is evolution, whether spiritually or physically. All humans do is create. Everything around us is created. If you're not creating something new, you're not evolving. 3, authenticity. Be you, not the version of you that you think people want to see. The real you, the messy, complicated, contradictory you. That's what people connect with. I didn't hide my depression. I didn't hide my anger or my trauma. I put it all in the music. And millions of people said, I feel that too. 4, belief. You have to believe you're supposed to make it, not hope, not wish. No, I knew I was going to be the greatest artist who ever lived. I said that from prison in the Genius interview. People thought I was crazy, but I believed it, and that belief shaped everything I did. 5, work. Nobody sees the work. They just see the success. But I was in the studio constantly. I was recording on iPhone earbuds if that's all I had. I wasn't waiting for the perfect conditions. I was making it happen with what I had. The unicorn thing you're talking about, I think it's not luck. It's a combination of talent, obsession, authenticity, and belief. Most people have 1 or 2 of those. If you have all of them, you're unstoppable. Your circumstances don't determine your outcome. Your response to them does. I came from nothing, worse than nothing, but I made something of myself because I refused to accept that my circumstances were my destiny. You can do the same thing. You just have to want it bad enough and be willing to evolve into whoever you need to be to make it happen.
Is that drive something you were born with or something you developed? Because my struggle is I have those aspirations, but then I have a million other things in opposition to that. And the battle is fighting that every day. And the problem is that instead of working on my aspirations, I'm just fighting the battle to believe in myself, to even go for it. That's where I'm being held back. You talk about how you had that insane belief. Is that something you had? Is that something that anyone can create for themselves? Or how does it work?
Man, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I was born with that drive. I think I had to build it out of necessity. And I was fighting battles every day too. You're not the only one. I was insecure and depressed. During my time in high school, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder as a child. When the fader asked me if I thought I suffered from mental illness, I said, do I think I suffer from mental illness? I think I'm different. That's the last thing I say on video. I knew something was going on with me, but I didn't always have the words for it. So that belief you're talking about, it didn't come easy. It came from desperation. I had to believe I was going to be the greatest artist who ever lived, because if I didn't have that, what did I have? I had nothing. No father, broken home, trauma stacking on trauma. Music was the only thing that made sense. So I poured everything into it. The belief came from the work, not the other way around. But here's the thing you're describing. The million things in opposition, the constant battle just to believe in yourself. I felt that too. I was fighting my own mind every single day. Depression, insecurity, anger, all of it. The difference wasn't that I didn't have those battles. It's that I decided the music mattered more than the battles. You said you're spending all your energy fighting the battle to believe in yourself instead of working on your aspirations. I get that, but maybe you're thinking about it backwards. You don't win the battle to believe in yourself and then start working. You start working, and the belief comes from seeing yourself do the work. Every time you show up, even when you don't feel like it, even when you're not sure it's worth it, that's when you start building the belief. I said this once: you are the person that you desire to be. That's not magic. That's not some born with it thing. That's a choice you make every day. You become that person by acting like that person, even before you believe you are that person. So, can anyone create it for themselves? Yeah, I think so. But it's not comfortable. It's not easy. You have to be willing to work when you don't believe yet. You have to be willing to fail and look stupid and keep going anyway. The belief doesn't come first. The action comes first, and the belief follows. The drive I had, it came from pain, from having no other option, from deciding that I was going to make something out of nothing or die trying. You don't need my exact circumstances to have that drive. You just need to decide that whatever you're trying to build matters more than your fear of failing at it. Start working on your aspirations even while you're fighting the battle. Don't wait until you feel ready. You'll never feel ready. Just start. The belief will catch up.
Okay, I get that you have to believe, and I get that you have to work to fuel that belief. But there's still a separation between the many thousands, 90% of failures versus the 10% who succeed. And that is the results. You know, you had the results. You created the music, but you also had the following. And it worked. But for some people, it doesn't. Is that just because they're doing it wrong?
Nah, it's not that simple. It's not just doing it wrong. There's something else you're not accounting for. Timing, luck, the way things catch fire. I can't sit here and tell you it was all just hard work and belief. That's not the whole truth. Look at Me was recorded in 2015. It sat on SoundCloud for over a year. Nobody cared. Then in early 2017, it exploded, went viral, hit the Billboard Hot 100. Why then? I don't know, man. I was doing the same work before it blew up. I was making the same type of music. But something about that moment, that timing, the way people were feeling, it connected. There's an element of this that's beyond your control. You can do everything right and still not make it. That's real. That's life. But here's what I do know. You can't get lucky if you're not in position to be lucky. If I hadn't been making music, uploading it, putting it out there consistently, Look at Me never would have had the chance to blow up. The work didn't guarantee success, but without the work, success was impossible. So is it because people are doing it wrong? Sometimes, yeah. A lot of people aren't being authentic. They're copying what's hot instead of making what they feel. A lot of people aren't evolving. They find one thing that kind of works and they beat it to death. A lot of people give up too early before they even give themselves a chance to get lucky. But sometimes you can do everything right and it still doesn't happen. That's the part nobody wants to talk about. There are talented people who never make it. There are people who work just as hard as I did who never get the moment I got. What separates the 10% from the 90%? I think it's this. The 10% kept going even when the results weren't there yet. They kept working when nobody was watching. They kept believing when there was no reason to believe. And eventually, if you do that long enough, you give yourself enough chances for something to catch. I uploaded music for years before anything happened. Most artists who blow up have a similar story. Years of grinding in the dark before the light hits. The people who fail, a lot of them stop before they get there. They see no results and they think it's not working, so they quit. But you're right. That's not the whole story either. Some people do everything right and quit after 10 years because they have to, because they need to eat, because life doesn't give them the luxury of waiting for their moment. That's real too. So what do you do with that? You accept that success isn't guaranteed. You accept that you might work your ass off and not make it. But then you ask yourself, does that change what you're going to do? Are you only going to chase your dreams if you're guaranteed to succeed? Because if that's the case, you've already lost. I chased mine knowing I might die before I saw them through. I said that in my live stream. If I die a tragic death and I don't get to see out my dreams, I at least want to know that I tried, that I put the work in, that I gave myself a chance. You can't control the results, Dan. You can only control the work. So do the work. Be authentic. Evolve. Stay consistent. And if it doesn't work, at least you'll know you gave yourself a real shot. That's all you can do.
So if you think there's an element of luck to your success, what do you put as your North Star? Because if I do everything just so I can make it, and the make it takes forever, and I have to work in the dark for so long, or if it feels like it never shows up, it obviously conflicts. You lose motivation. And that's where I feel like I'm at and I see other people at. What do you do then? Do you have to put something else as your motivation, as something else that you're working toward?
Yeah, man, you do. Because if your only North Star is making it, fame, success, recognition, you're going to burn out. You're going to lose that battle you're talking about. My North Star wasn't really fame. I mean, I wanted to be the greatest artist who ever lived, yeah. But that wasn't the day-to-day thing that kept me going. What kept me going was the people I was trying to reach. The kids who felt as alone and dark as I did. I said this multiple times. If I'm going to die or ever be a sacrifice, I want to make sure that my life made at least 5 million kids happy. That was it. That was the point. It wasn't about me. It was about them. The kids who were sitting in their rooms contemplating suicide, the ones who felt like nobody understood them, the ones who needed to hear that they weren't alone. When I made Jocelyn Flores or Everybody Dies in Their Nightmares, I wasn't thinking, this is going to get me famous. I was thinking, somebody needs to hear this. I was trying to reach one person, and if I reached one person, that was enough to keep going. So what should your North Star be? The work itself, the impact you want to have, the person you want to help, not the result, not the fame or the money or the recognition. Those things are byproducts. They might come, they might not. But if your North Star is something bigger than your own success, if it's about helping people, creating something meaningful, evolving into the person you're supposed to be, then you can keep going even when the results aren't there yet. I also said this, only you create your purpose. Fuck that. Make yourself happy. If something makes you happy, follow that. You have to find joy in the process, not just the outcome. If you're only happy when you make it, you're going to be miserable for years, maybe forever. But if you find meaning in the work, in the creation, in the evolution, that sustains you. Here's another thing I believe. No one can say why you're alive. No one can save you but you. Your art can be in your emotion. You have to create your own purpose. It's not handed to you. It's not going to show up one day with a clear answer. You have to decide what matters to you and build your life around that. For me, it was reaching people through music. For you, it might be something else. But it has to be something beyond just, I want to be successful. Because success is external. It's out of your control. Purpose is internal. It's something you carry with you whether you make it or not. So if you're losing motivation because the results aren't showing up, ask yourself, why am I doing this in the first place? Who am I trying to help? What do I want to create? What kind of person do I want to become? If the answers to those questions matter to you, really matter, not just in a that sounds nice way, then you can keep going. The motivation comes from the why, not the what. And honestly, man, if you're doing something just to make it and it's not bringing you any joy or meaning along the way, maybe that's not the right thing. Maybe your North Star is pointing somewhere else. There's no shame in that. The key to love is compromise. The key to life is honesty. Be honest with yourself about what you actually want and what you're actually willing to sacrifice for it. But if you know this is what you're supposed to be doing, then let the work be the point. Let the impact be the point. Let becoming the person you want to be the point. The results will come or they won't, but you'll have lived with purpose either way.
That's interesting. It kind of puts the results as the byproduct, but it can't be the end in and of itself, which makes sense. But it's hard when you need that byproduct, because you need to eat, you need to make some money. And that necessity, it's sad that it kills all that creativity, because most people, they don't do what they're passionate about and they don't have that motivation behind their work. Rather, they work to get that paycheck. And that's a sad reality in my mind. But I don't know, maybe that's just life.
No, you're right. It is sad. And it's real. That's the trap most people are in. They work just to survive, and survival kills the dream. I get that. I lived that for a while too. But here's the thing. I didn't have money when I started. I was broke. I was stealing laptops to make music. I was recording on iPhone earbuds, using FL Studio Mobile on an Android phone because I couldn't afford real equipment. I wasn't making money off music for years. So how did I eat? How did I survive? I had to figure that out while still making the music. You can't ignore the survival part. That's real. You need money to live. But the question is, are you going to let that necessity kill everything else? Or are you going to find a way to do both, survive and chase the thing that matters to you? A lot of people work a job they hate and tell themselves, one day I'll do what I love. But one day never comes. They're too tired after work, too drained. They lose the fire. I get it. But if you're serious about your purpose, you have to protect it. Even if it's just an hour a day, even if it's just on weekends, you find the time because it matters more than your exhaustion. I'm sadder than most of you with the money and the freedom. I said that because money doesn't fix the emptiness. Success doesn't fix the pain. If you're working just for a paycheck and you don't have purpose behind it, you're going to be miserable whether you're broke or rich. The paycheck isn't enough. It never is. So yeah, maybe most people work just to survive and never do what they're passionate about. But that doesn't have to be you. You just have to be willing to do the hard thing, work the job that pays the bills, and put in the extra hours on the thing that matters. It's exhausting. It's not fair, but it's the reality. And honestly, some of the best art comes from that struggle, from working a dead-end job during the day and pouring your soul into your music or your writing or whatever at night. That tension, that desperation, it fuels the work. It did for me. So don't let the necessity of survival kill the dream. Let it coexist. Do what you have to do to eat, but don't abandon what you're supposed to be doing. Find a way to do both, because you're right. Like, if you give up on your purpose just to survive, that's a sad life, but you don't have to choose one or the other. You just have to be willing to carry both until one of them takes off. And if it never takes off, at least you tried. At least you didn't abandon yourself for a paycheck. That's worth something.
I appreciate you speaking on this. I feel like I've hijacked the conversation talking about just things that matter to me, but I also feel like a lot of people can resonate with trying to make something of their lives, because that's what it is at the end of the day. And I thought of another question. You were able to make conceptually beauty out of ashes of your own life. You took your hurt, your pain, and you made something of it. Not only did you have to just, not to the point of avoiding it, but turning it, using it to your benefit by making a career, a message, helping people through it. Do you have a blueprint? Say I'm an audience, I'm a member of the audience, and they're trying to figure out their purpose. What project, what they can work on, a message that they want to share with the world based on what they can speak to and what they have to provide. How did you create your purpose, specifically out of your pain, and how can someone else do the same?
Man, I appreciate you saying that. You didn't hijack anything. These are the conversations that matter. And you're right. A lot of people are trying to figure this out. So let me break down how I did it as honestly as I can. There's no one blueprint, but there's a process. And it starts with one thing. Only you create your purpose. That's not just something I said. That's the foundation. Nobody can hand you a purpose. No one can tell you who to be. You have to build it yourself. So how do you build it? Here's what worked for me. 1, start with what you actually feel. I didn't sit down and think, what message should I share with the world? I just started making music about what I was going through, the depression, the anger, the loneliness, the trauma. I wasn't trying to be deep or philosophical at first. I was just trying to get it out of me. The pain was eating me alive, and music was the only way I knew how to process it. Pain is a form of energy. It can be transformed. That's what I believe. Pain itself isn't destructive unless you ignore it. You can redirect it into growth, into creativity, into something that means something. So I took everything that was destroying me and I put it into the music. That was the first step. Not hiding from the pain, but using it. 2, be honest about what you're going through. Radically honest. If you're hurting, don't hide it. That's how it grows. The reason my music connected with people is because I didn't filter it. I didn't try to make it pretty or palatable. I said exactly what I was feeling, even when it was ugly, even when it was embarrassing, even when it made me look weak. That's where the purpose comes from. When you're honest about your pain, you give other people permission to be honest about theirs. And suddenly you're not just making art for yourself, you're reaching people who feel the same way. That's when it becomes something bigger than you. 3, figure out who you're trying to reach. For me, it was the kids who felt as alone and dark as I did. The ones sitting in their rooms contemplating suicide, the ones who felt like nobody understood them. I knew those people existed because I was one of them, so I made music for them. That became my North Star, reaching those people and letting them know they weren't alone. You have to figure out who your people are, who needs to hear what you have to say, who's going through what you went through. That's your audience. That's who you're making your project for. 4, turn your pain into a message. Pain by itself is just suffering, but when you understand it, when you process it, when you turn it into something you can share with others, that's when it becomes purpose. I made Jahseh Onfroy about a friend of mine who committed suicide. I made Everybody Dies in Their Nightmares about my own depression and suicidal thoughts. I wasn't just venting, I was trying to capture what it feels like to be in that darkness so that other people could hear it and say, that's exactly how I feel. So the question for you is, what have you been through that other people are going through too? What pain do you understand that you can help other people navigate? That's your message. That's your purpose. 5, create your purpose. Don't wait to find it. Make yourself happy. If something makes you happy, follow that. You have to create your own purpose and evolve towards that purpose. It's not out there waiting for you to discover it. You have to build it. You have to decide what matters to you and then dedicate your life to it. For me, that was music. For you, it might be something else. But the process is the same. Take what you've been through, understand it, turn it into something you can share, and dedicate yourself to reaching the people who need to hear it. 6, accept that you might fail and do it anyway. The people who succeed aren't the ones with perfect lives or easy paths. They're the ones who take their struggle and turn it into something meaningful. You can do that too. You just have to start.
I appreciate that answer. We're going to wrap up, but I have one last question. And this, out of my personal curiosity, did you have a favorite song of yours that you ever made? Out of all the music you ever created, did you have one favorite song?
Yeah, man, I spoke to the devil in Miami X says it is his favorite song among all his works. That one meant a lot to me. It was among my early releases on SoundCloud and became one of my most notable tracks prior to my mainstream breakthrough. But it wasn't about getting attention or going viral. That song came from a really deep place. On the track, I talked about selling my soul to Satan in exchange for success and explored themes of internal conflict between darkness and redemption. It wasn't literal. It was about the compromises you make when you're chasing something, the temptations, the feeling that you're trading pieces of yourself for what you want. Miami was where a lot of that was happening for me. When academics questioned me on the subject, I refused to answer, concerned that I could encourage kids going down that dark path. That was real. I didn't want kids thinking they had to go through what I went through or make the choices I made. I wanted to show them the struggle, not glamorize it. But yeah, that was my favorite. It captured something I was feeling that I couldn't express any other way. The production was raw, the lyrics were honest, and it felt like I was actually saying something that mattered. Not just making music, but speaking to something deeper. That's the song I'd want people to remember, honestly.
Man, I would have never guessed that, but I love it. That song, to me, hit me really hard in 2021, I think. I dove into it a lot because the lyrics, anyone out there that's listening, you need to go and look at the lyrics of that song. Put it in chat if you don't understand the definitions of any of the words. But that song is crazy. The amount of depth and meaning behind it, only a genius. So thank you, X. I appreciate your time, and thank you to everyone out there who's listening. This is a new idea I'm forming, and I need your help. First, I want to be able to create what you want. So if you have feedback of how I can do this better, people I should make to interview, or different ways I should approach it, comment down below. And all I ask of you in return, subscribe. I'll be working hard to make this better and to align the direction with what you want. And by subscribing, you can enable me to do that for work rather than getting some other job. So with that, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.